And hello there, everybody, and welcome to Fanatic Xenophiles, creating characters for Stellaris. I am joined by the wonderful Frida and Emma. So we'll quickly introduce them and what they do here at Paradox. So Emma, hello there. Who are you, and what do you do here at Paradox?
Hi, I'm a 2D artist. I've been working for 4 years at Paradox now. Time has gone really fast. But I basically make 2D art, and I've been working on Stellaris and other unannounced projects, basically.
A little bit of mystery there, nice.
Yeah.
And Frida, who are you and what do you do here at Paradox?
Yeah, I've been working at Paradox for 6 years. I've done all kinds of things, so I consider myself a generalist. But lately, I've been having art leads roles for unannounced projects, and also currently Stellaris, where I'm working with Emma right now.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So there you go. And I believe the pair of you have a presentation for us.
Yes.
Oh yes.
Yes.
The first question, this obviously summarizes what we were just talking about, but the first question I had for you, and we'll go in the opposite order this time. So starting with Frida, how did you get into the games industry?
Yeah, it's a funny story because I went to a school up in northern Sweden where we studied art for 3 years. And then as my first internship, I followed a friend who was looking for work at a company called Coldwood. And I basically just followed unannounced and literally pressed my foot between the door when it was closing and said, like, here's me, I want an internship. So basically my friend didn't get a job, but I got an internship instead. So that's how I got into the industry in general. So then I after a few years here in Umeå, where we work, I heard about Paradox Arctic, a new studio where I joined in 2015. And basically, since Umeå is a very small town, everyone knew everyone. So I sort of got a job through a party, more or less, very informal, or the offering. So I've been at Paradox ever since, and it's a very fun studio here at Paradox Arctic.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Basically, my story, it's super short compared to Frida. Basically, I called the manager of the studio and asked for an internship, and he said yes, without even knowing what I was going to intern for. But I showed up, and then like after a few hours, they asked like, well, by the way, what are you going to intern? And that's when I showed like what I can do and what I want to do, and then they said, "Oh, perfect! This is gonna be perfect." That's how I entered.
So both of you went out there and found your way in, essentially. Is the link there? And for those listening, wondering or watching and wondering how to do so, there you go. So on to our next question then. Do you want to take us a bit deeper into what you do? Your role on Stellaris and that sort of thing.
Yes. Let's see. Our role on Stellaris is basically, how can we talk about it beyond?
Yeah, without
being spoilering.
I mean, we've during the years when we worked at Stellaris before, we've been working on a lot of different things.
Yeah.
But mostly portraits and the 2D stuff.
Yeah.
And that's what we do now too. Portraits, characters for Stellaris.
Yeah. So it basically, we're going to run through the whole like process, how you make a species, basically, with the presentation. But in depth, our roles is not just, or our tasks are not just painting pictures all day. We have so many other stuff going on, all kind of company-wide projects or initiatives that we attend, and we have a lot on our studio as well on side projects or new projects that are happening.
I guess that's why we kind of call us generalists, since we do art, that's what we know, but we help out anywhere else we can too.
Yeah.
And more things than art.
Yeah.
I find that's generally true of a lot of us at Paradox. There's a lot of people who will help out where they can. It's pretty wonderful. So let's dive into that process then. Sort of from initial conception to going into the game for a character portrait.
Yes.
How does it go? How on earth does that happen?
Yeah. So let's see. We have a lot of slides, so. But basically, in some backgrounds with species, we have about, I think, more than 200 species. We haven't sat down and counted everyone, but around 200 species, and they are divided into 11 species classes, and these are basically like mammalians and molluscoids and all of those categories. And I guess with each new content pack, we create a new specialized species class. Yes, just some background. But I guess when we sit down and create a new content pack, for example, we have a few rules concerning the Stellaris universe, the brand guides, basically, which is like these 3 things are very important, that they need to be believable and relatable. And that's from a human perspective. So as human beings, we have certain things that we think, make a species relatable, like eyes or hands or some kind of feature.
Yeah, exactly. Some kind of way for them to express emotion and to express intellect. Like with the word sentient that we use very often when we concept our species, like they shouldn't be too human, they shouldn't be too creature or monstrous, but they still need to express some kind of intelligence. And also a big focus on balancing them not being too stiff and serious and not being too goofy and only a meme, but some kind of in between.
Yeah, but exceptions has been made.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah, so let's go deeper into the pipeline. So basically, first off, we always start with the design document that is made by either the game director or the lead designer or someone who has a idea of what maybe the next content pack could be. Here we have an example for the necroids. So basically, it's just a very like rough idea of the theme and some criteria, and then we like go from there. And then it's brainstorming time.
Exactly. After the game design doc is approved, we go straight into brainstorming. And it's basically throwing as many ideas at the wall as possible and see what sticks. And the aliens that stick out the most, that kind of catch our attention in some way, is basically what sets the art direction for the rest of the species. And this art direction is it's defined by the art leads together with the rest of the team, basically gathering this kind of stuff.
Words or pictures or anything that could help the team to know what direction we want to go in, and also what the limitations are. We usually create like do's and do nots, or is and is not, where it's like, okay, we want to go in this direction, but we want to avoid these themes or things because that is cliche or that is too expected or something. So then we have our like boundaries or our creative limitations. So.
Exactly. Like we don't want to leave it too open. So the creative limitations sort of, I don't know, makes it easier to be even more creative, even if it sounds like the opposite.
Giving yourself boundaries actually opens up opportunities. Yep.
Exactly.
So basically and I guess it also helps the team to be aligned if we talk the same language, so it's not too open, because then we can also unify our styles or the designs.
Exactly, enabling like the whole team to head in the same direction, to have the same vision.
Yeah. So basically, when we have settled with an interesting idea, then the whole like who is this guy process starts.
Yeah.
So yeah. So basically, this is called in art language an iteration. So basically we have an idea, but then it's like, no, this is not working. For example, with the plantoids there, we had a base sketch that was something like a mammalian type of creature more than a plantoid. So then you can see sort of the evolution of the iterations. It's like, okay, if I make it a bit more like this, no, it's too much of a moose. Okay, if we split up the mouth like this, okay, now it's more like some kind of plant thing or
exactly
orchid.
Like it's feedback loops with the trial and errors and conversation between artists, and basically having fun while trying to find something that works.
Yeah. And one tool that we used recently is using traits. So we sort of try to give the characters traits and sort of a personality. So we strive to make the characters fit those traits, so they can help us inspire. Like, is this a sneaky one? Is this a shady one, or an intelligent, extra intelligent one, or an evil one? Without going overboard, because we still want the players to use that portrait in more than one playset. But we have in mind.
A perfect example of that is the fact that the cuter the portrait, the more likely they are to try and eat your face.
Exactly.
Yes. So I guess we are very mindful of these play styles and how we interpreted them, because everyone has very different feelings, I guess, for them. Someone likes the contrast. Some people like it to be very clear that like this is a science guy or this is a
oh yeah, they really need to fit
like these feel like hive-minded people.
Yeah.
So we are mindful of that. And then we have even more pictures.
I didn't even wrote the number of the.
Yeah, but here are more like here are more examples, like how a process can look like. First, a very quick thumbnail, and then like trying to build it up in 3D, sort of.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess this was a very straightforward creature that didn't take much iteration to get the final design for. It was a straightforward mammalian eggs, whatever.
Yeah, I don't know the number. Yeah. They are pretty anonymous when we draw them. Yeah. They're like called mammalian 1 or 2.
Yeah, but we give them internally their own names.
Yeah, and nicknames.
Yeah, I think with the recent portraits we actually name them in the game with their project names, so they get these funny names. So I guess everyone will see more of that in the future.
Yeah, we'll see what happens.
Yes.
We can go to the next one.
Yeah, and also I don't think every portrait will make it from this initial state with the designs. So there are some rare survivors that sort of made it into the game from the initial concept. And these are from the vanilla game, of course. Yeah. But these are like one of the first sketches that was ever made for Stellaris back in maybe 2013-14, when they were working on the earliest prototypes of the game. So it's cool.
It's really awesome to see how much of those initial sketches are completely present in those final versions. They have literally gone almost from sketch to final version, haven't they?
Yeah.
Really awesome.
Yeah. So I guess that's it about the process and in general, how we like take an idea from a very sketchy thumbnail to a rendered image. Do you have any questions about that?
Oh, so many, many. Trust me, I have more questions than we have time. But the first one that I immediately want to ask, you did touch upon it briefly and mention this, but something that I wanted to discuss was Stellaris is, you guys mentioned it, it sits in a happy place between goofy and serious.
Oh, yes.
And there are other things about the brand, the tropes we include, all of that sort of stuff. Does that make it easier or harder? And does that present challenges?
I think the tricky thing is that it's a game that is supposed to be modular and replayable. So, for example, if it were a story-driven game, then we could really create a character for each species. So they would be like, this is the bad guy, these are the good guys. But now, since the portraits are randomized through the game, they need to fit into like, they should be your enemies or your allies in the same art asset, basically. So that is, I guess, a very tricky thing, that they need to be appealing, but they can't be too compromised somehow, since it's going to fit into every scenario. So I think that is the trickiest balance, because Stellaris is sort of an anti-IP or intellectual property. Yeah.
It almost sounds like you have to balance putting character into the portraits without personality.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we want personality, but we can't go overboard, because then we're sort of telling the player that this is always the bad guy, even if he's approaching you and is a super peaceful ally. So yeah, that is the tricky part, I guess, because without giving them traits or some sort of appeal, then you won't find them appealing, basically. So yeah. that is our biggest struggle, I would say. But regarding like goofiness or seriousness, then Stellaris is like a perfect blend of that. It's sort of there's room to create those sort of more meme-like species, but I guess the majority should be sort of dignified and intelligent, and
yeah. That's where the sentient word we keep using come in, because you kind of want to make a character, and you want to make a character with personality, but the player sort of should be able to choose the personality of the character themselves in a way.
Yeah, it's an interesting challenge. And does that, on the other side of it, let you really stretch your wings creatively though? Does it sort of really let you almost do anything you want?
Both yes and no. It's like we mentioned earlier, when the more open a task is, the more difficult it is to be creative about it. Basically, if someone hands you a white paper and says draw something cool, well what's cool? Can you give me some sort of direction? And that's where the more the open the task is, and the more like, I don't even know how to explain it,
the more it challenges you. I guess if there's a true challenge there, then you become creative and create something that you maybe didn't think that you would be able to do. And I guess that's the good thing about being a team, because then you can sort of, someone draws something crazy and then another person takes that and runs with it and do something even more unique.
Yeah.
So the next one, ignoring Jeff, because everyone's favorite is Jeff. What are your favorite portraits in the game?
We have them somewhere.
Here they are.
Yeah.
So take me through why. Why these two? Yeah.
Go. Should I begin? Oh yeah, the nose guy. Basically, when I play the game myself, I don't pick him. I usually pick like the humans or something I definitely can relate to. But I like this guy from like a design artistic point of view. He's very creative, but not too far. And he's funny too. I like him.
That one I always use as my criminal megacores.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, they are gangsters to me.
Yes.
The moment I see that portrait, I'm just like, no, you're gangsters.
Yeah.
And yep, they are my criminal megacore. But it's one of my favorites as well. It's genuinely brilliant. And so Frida.
Basically, I always end up playing some kind of materialistic, science-focused empire. So I usually pick these ones because they are sort of cool, or no, they are like cold. I mean, and I don't know. They feel like very dignified and intelligent. So I usually pick them for my empires.
That makes sense. I have to admit they're one of the ones. There's those and the other one that's slightly like them that I always use as materialist races as well. Something about them screams, I like science.
In my head.
So the next question I have is a bit more about you two personally rather than Stellaris or anything like that. And what inspires you as artists? And in particular, are there any other artists out there that you look to their work and go, "Ooh, that's awesome," and then that informs what you do, or do you take it from life, etc.? We'll go with Frida first here.
Okay. Basically, I joined the games industry because I foremost wanted to do games, develop games. So I think it's kind of common that artists like to work with art for art's sake, but I'm sort of more like art is a means to an end to make games. So I wouldn't say that I have any like true artists that inspire me or I want to strive to become the best artist. So I'm more like inspired by a good song or some good story or something that just inspires me to create these characters around that story or something. I guess I'm much foremost a storyteller. But as a kid, I was very inspired by children book covers and artists. So, for example, Alvaro Tapia, who made the Swedish Harry Potter covers, were I thought was very awe-inspiring and interesting and had a lot of details and stuff. So, I guess whatever sparks my fantasy is what inspires me.
And I am very similar to Frida, as art is also sort of a means to an end to achieve a bigger goal, which is the game development. And I was the same when I was little. I was never sitting down just to draw or just to make a pretty picture that I can show to my friends. I never really enjoyed art for the sake of art. But I loved making up stories. I loved playing. I was super creative when I was little, and I used art to like make up these stories, and that's how I learned to draw in the end. So yeah, same for me. It's about making the games, and making the game inspires me, and I can use art to make the game come alive, basically.
You're both definitely on the right title. If you're both storytellers, Stellaris is the correct game for you to be on. Let's be honest. It is just a giant canvas to tell your tale upon, and yeah, I can understand why you two can relate to that instantly. So my final real question: some of our portraits are a little bit referential to tropes and famous species within science fiction. Again, does that make your life an utter nightmare? Is that decision made by you guys? Like, and yeah, how on earth do you go about treading that line where people will see it and go, "Oh, that's that thing," without, the lawyers getting involved?
Yeah, I have a concrete example.
Yep.
Compared to we call them the space samurais. What's their unofficial name? Basically, of course, they were supposed to be representing or be similar to the rubber foreheads of Star Trek.
Yep.
So it was. I think that was the one where I actually had to talk to legal. I made that one back in 2017-ish. Where it was like, okay, Klingons have a lot of hair, but I'm not allowed to to have too much hair. Like, how can we style them in some direction that is sort of remind the players, like, okay, it's black hair, that makes me think of Klingon. Okay, it's an uneven forehead, that makes me think of them. But this was before they did the reboot with the Klingons, so now they're actually a bit more similar to the ones in Enterprise.
Yeah, they are actually now.
Maybe they re-influenced them. I hope not.
Let's say it is that.
Yeah, but basically, so this was, I think, the closest we got to some kind of IP infringement. But I think it's a very interesting challenge that lets you be creative. Like, what in these classic designs is it that people like, and where do you draw the line where it's like, okay, now it's not IP infringement anymore because this thing is clearly different, or this thing is clearly different, etc.
Yeah.
So you sort of have to create your own culture around it, because I think if you just copy paste and then just change some details, then it's kind of cheap. You still need to create your own design or your own backstory to them somehow.
So there you go.
Yeah.
So that's all the questions I have. And unfortunately, this is pretty much all the time we have as well. So thank you so much for this presentation. So thank you so much for joining us for this, both of you. This has been really fascinating. I have to be honest, I've not said a lot because I've just been sitting here listening to you. This has been genuinely very, very interesting. Thank you so much for joining us. Everybody that's watching, we hope that you are enjoying PDXCON 2021, PDXCON Remixed 2021, sorry, and that you enjoy the rest of the content we have going on. In the meantime, we will see you all soon. Bye-bye.
Yeah.